So welcome to the Safe Routes to School Grant Program and Evaluation webinar. This webinar is made possible by Federal Transportation Alternative Program funds administered by the Michigan Department of Transportation in collaboration with the Michigan Fitness Foundation. The Michigan Fitness Foundation is a nonprofit organization located in Lansing that's been involved with Michigan's Safe Routes to School program since its inception in 2003, from the time when Safe Routes to School is only a pilot, not even a federal program. So that means presently we're actually celebrating our 20th year, and we're really proud of this fact. Michigan Fitness Foundation administers the Safe Routes to School program on behalf of MDOT by providing training and technical assistance to all schools and communities participating in Safe Routes to School. So today we are going to cover a lot of different information in terms of program and coordinator responsibilities, resources, eligible and ineligible encouragement items, as well as various levels of evaluation that happens as part of the grant. And I'm going to turn it over and unmute or mute myself for Adam to take over.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. So the first thing we want to talk about is the program coordinator responsibilities. Every Safe Routes to School program needs to have a designated coordinator. This individual has a series of responsibilities that are crucial to the implementation of the components outlined in your progress report. Among those responsibilities that we identify and can talk about more is to champion, facilitate Safe Routes to School activities. As the program coordinator, that individual should be a local champion that advocates and rallies support for the activities related to the grant. They will be an important actor when communicating objectives and events to parents, faculty, and the community at large. Also, to implement and complete reports, the coordinator will ensure that the program components are implemented throughout the school year, accompanied by completed progress reports. Completed progress reports will be included with all invoices that need to be processed by the program fiduciary. Also conduct research or outreach, integration of outreach is critical to be making sure that all perspectives are considered when implementing the program. This will also expand much needed support to sustain the activities in the future. Also, complete evaluation measures. Various evaluation measures will need to be completed for the grant to collect data relevant to the experience of the coordinator and will help inform the Safe Routes to School best practices. The evaluation measures are going to be covered later in the training, but the last responsibility I wanted to talk about was to follow fiduciary guidelines. So the program coordinators are expected to work closely with their fiduciary to manage the financial aspects of the grant. For more information on the fiduciary guidelines, please refer to the contracts training that will be on the 19th of this month. So we'll talk a little bit more in the future, but we'll certainly entertain questions regarding that today. All right. Next slide. Sorry about that. Guess we're already on to the next one here. So the principal of the participating school plays an important role as the central administrative figure when executing the Safe Routes to School program. So some of those responsibilities would include support the Safe Routes to School program and goals. The principal should be aware of the program goals and be able to communicate the importance to the school staff and community. Also to provide permission to engage the staff and students in Safe Routes to School activities. The principal will often need to provide permission to engage staff and students in various Safe Routes to School activities. This also establishes a culture of accountability that can address possible parental concerns regarding the program. Also support of distribution of materials. It will be important for the principal to support any distribution of materials that aid programming and ensure that the surveys are administered. Also to delegate leadership roles. So delegation of leadership roles will also need to be determined by the principal to direct activities successful. Turnover in personnel can potentially disrupt the program components. A responsive principal that can quickly reassign positions makes for a more resilient program. Next slide, please. There are also a set of priorities on which your program should focus, that being education, encouragement, enforcement, or engagement are key tenets of any Safe Routes to School program. So with education, what we're referring to with that is students should be educated in tandem with Safe Routes to School activities that engage them in active transportation. They should be made aware of pedestrian and biking conditions as it relates to their local area and surroundings. Students should then be taught the skills and behaviors to navigate between home and the school in a safe way. By encouragement, we're talking about students to be more active with low-cost incentive items or friendly school-wide competitions. Coordinators should make sure that programming is enjoyable and beneficial to the school population. Remember to focus on making activities fun so that the students will want to continue their engagement throughout the school year and into lifelong habits. Enforcement, we're talking about the enforcement that facilitates constructive and safe active transportation activities in the community. This can be in partnership with your local police department, neighborhood watch groups, or student safety patrol. Those who are major grantees should refer to your action plan from the non-infrastructure grant documents for strategies. All these objectives are intended to ultimately increase the number of students and frequency of active transportation to and from school. By working with a fiduciary, the coordinator should be able to collaborate to think of effective methods and have access to resources provided by the grant. Next slide, please. So an example of a complete program includes a recognized coordinator and a series of components. The school principal should hire the program coordinator at the beginning of the school year and plan to implement any programs focusing on education, encouragement, and enforcement. The program coordinator is a year-round position that oversees all activities that are part of the grant. Some of those program components could be a walking school bus. So this is typically done year-round with up to 5 routes and 5 paid leaders. The routes are planned based on where students live. A punch card or token system, small incentives that could be available to encourage students to regularly participate in active transportation. Could be a bike and pedestrian rodeo that is a day-long event or a series of days where students are taught bike and pedestrian safety skills. That way students get hands-on instruction along with the ability to put their new skills to practice. This is often done with students grades 2 to 5. Also classroom education with physical education teachers or other faculty can be supplemented through their lesson plans with NHTSA curriculum. It is also constructive to reach out to the police department and various community champions to offer their knowledge when implementing this ongoing instruction time. Also, another example of a component would be an increased or progressive ticketing program. That is a non-funded component where a coordinator works with the police department to raise awareness or administer tickets near student pedestrian routes at strategic times of the year. Next slide. Also, so this is kind of a new development with our program. We're able to work with high schools. We're still learning how to best engage with high school students, but we have already noticed some best practices. There is a major opportunity to have students step into leadership roles and have a more civic-oriented experience with programming. Although these students tend to have more commitments, activities can overlap with their passions and interests, whether that be environmentalism, social justice, holding, being a part of holding the events. Some of the examples of activities that high school students might participate in would be a student safety task force. That is a group of students that meet regularly to identify safety concerns and reach out to the student body and broader community to implement changes. This is a way to actively engage students with substantial school policy and empower them as stakeholders. Promotional campaigns can take the form of many different methods, such as yard sign design contest or social media outreach. Students often think of creative ways to convey program messages and utilize communication sources that may not have been identified in the past. As I kind of referenced earlier, working to plan and facilitate events, students can take the lead in putting on regularly occurring events or education initiatives. This is a good way for the safety task force to increase their visibility and implement safety measures. Once again, we encourage you to work with students to find overlapping interests and find opportunities to incorporate Safe Routes to School into other student commitments. Next slide, please. There's a wealth of resources on our website, saferoutesmichigan.org. Here you will find various education resources useful for classroom and after school programming. You can find this under our resources tab on our website. There are also ideas considering knowledge-based programs that provide pedestrian and cyclist information and hands-on skill-based programs. So we'll be dropping some of those links in the chat, but you'll also find resources that serve bilingual audiences in your community. These resources can be found in the bicycle safety resources. We are also able to provide additional materials upon request. For resources to address topics such as personal pedestrian responsibilities, bullying, and how to communicate the Safe Routes to School goals in your community, please visit our personal safety resources. Also, concentrating on the encouragement E, there are resources for you to jumpstart a walking school bus, bike train, remote drop off, or planning a walk to school day event. So with those type of events, if you have participated in the past or are looking at possibly holding that event, a bike and roll to school day or walk and roll to school day is an excellent way to give visibility to active transportation and your program in the community. You can start planning your event at saferoutesmichigan.org, and remember to register your school through the program and events tab. Bike and roll to school day is on the second Wednesday in May, and walk and roll to school day, which we just celebrated, is the second Wednesday in October. So some of those other program components that were referenced in this list with the walking school bus is another effective program to encourage students. It's found on the National Safe Routes to School website. There's a getting started guide and other helpful tips to coordinate the personnel and planning that will be needed to get your school engaged in this group activity. Also, you can choose to conduct a similar program called a bike brigade or a bike train. This includes biking groups of students with an adult leader. The Walk Bike to School has an online guide that provides advice on how to safely execute this program. And also you might consider a remote drop-off program. So a remote drop-off program can involve the wide range of students that may rely on motorized transportation to get to school, but still wish to travel actively. Organizations like Change Lab Solutions have helpful manuals on how to successfully plan strategic drop-off sites for parents and a list of considerations for a variety of school contexts. Next slide, please. So Safe Routes to School encouragement items should be useful to students when walking or biking to school. To maximize resources of your grant, be sure to reward ongoing participation and keep the items at low or to no cost. Some no-cost options might be something along the lines of extra credit, recess time, getting to eat lunch with a favorite teacher or principal, out of uniform days for those schools that have uniforms. It could be acknowledgements of students in a weekly email or announcement, and also posted leaderboards. If you're unsure if something is eligible, please do not hesitate to contact the grant coordinator or myself in this case. So next slide, please. So here's a list of common eligible encouragement items, but it's certainly not a complete list. We're not going to go through the whole list at this time, but you can find these in the Safe Routes to School Procedures and Operations Manual on our website. This list is found under the Resources tab and award recipient reporting materials. So one thing to note that unfortunately we're not able to fund bicycles with the grant, but you could purchase parts and supplies to fix them up in a bike library program. I can speak to more of that later if there's interest in it. And we're always open to innovation, and we encourage those program coordinators to collaborate with us on those new ideas. Next slide, please. So with any materials that you choose to share publicly, oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So this is just a list of some of the commonly ineligible items. And so once again, bicycles can be a little difficult, but there are certain circumstances where we might be able to work with you. We certainly want to get more students on bikes rather than less. But sometimes that requires a little bit of brain work on how you can leverage local resources to work with the grant. Next slide, please. So with any materials that you choose to share publicly, we ask you to incorporate our Safe Routes to School and Michigan Fitness Foundation logos. The logos should also be used when crediting the funding source of your grant. You can also find our logos in the resources tab and through the media kit link. You can download the media kit and unzip the file. Our logos and other resources will assist your program with public outreach efforts. You're also welcome to use the MDOT logo with pre-approval. Next slide, please. So evaluation is a core tenet of the Safe Routes to School 6Es. And depending on what grant you receive, we have different reporting requirements. As the program coordinator, you'll be working with me to align your progress report with your grant activities. We're also going to discuss the specific evaluation related to the mini grant versus the major grant. So there are some key differences with that. So the program coordinators are required to submit a progress report with every invoice. The form will have a pre-entered list of listing the program component column. In the description column, we'll have you write a few sentences based on the progress made at the time of the invoice submission. Please be sure to provide copies of documents to support the progress made during that period. These can include photos, sign-in sheets, lesson plans, or any other documentation that demonstrates the work that was done. And then this is just the bottom half of that form where you will report your progress made, and also pose any questions that I can reach back out to you and address. So here's an example of a filled out progress report. It contains general details about how the listed program components are proceeding, such as results, success, challenges, or steps taken to achieve the goal. The documentation is referenced in this form and can be attached to the invoice package. Progress reports should be submitted monthly, even if you are not seeking reimbursement for that month. Next slide, please. Okay, so this form is the participation log and tracking form, and it's to be set up with information most relevant to walking. Uh, it's for a walking school bus or a bike train, given the spaces on the form for weather and morning and afternoon entry. It's a hard copy form you can use to write down information and participation. So as you look at this form, it has 5 weeks in the document to accommodate all the months of the year. It's meant to be a tool that should function as a place to keep hard copy information over a month for a given program component. We know there are other ways to track that data, which you might be using, and we encourage you to use the system that works best for you. So for example, one copy of this form could be kept by a specific walking school bus route leader. They would fill this out for their route over a month and then hand it in to the coordinator to consolidate that route's data with the other routes or program components. So we're getting more into the territory of evaluation. So Colleen Sink will now speak to the other evaluation tools that are a part of the program.
So in that first thing that I'm going to talk about is regarding the consolidation that Adam just referenced. So taking all your data from maybe your walking school buses, maybe your education programs, your bike library, whatever your components are, we actually build out based on your grant application a fiduciary specific participation summary form with all of those components in the column with breakdown and participation to try and capture both students and potentially adult volunteers as well. So this is an Excel with various tabs that each tab represents a month, and you can enter those hard copy forms, or once again, if you have a different way that you're collecting your participation, you can take it and enter it in one place. This is really meant to help track over time and provide an overview of your participation. It's hopefully we just see numbers going up and up and up, but also we know the winter is right in the middle. So it's often we see a little dip there. But it's helpful to note and kind of see what trends are happening, how weather or other specific circumstances, maybe you have a turnover in your coordinator or something like that. And then we can align and kind of see how what's happened in your program implementation is impacting actual participation and reach of your program. So it's really helpful, or the hope is that this is a strategy to help shed light on how that's happening, not just in a given month or in a given component, but across all components of your program. So you're going to be entering that information once again in those separate spreadsheets. And we have set them up if you have a grant that has multiple schools. In this example, it just says Apple School, but you should be able to edit the school name. So if you wanted to do it school by school, or if you wanted to do it district wide and just do one big summary, you can make it adaptive to what's going to work well for you and how you're implementing, and coordinating your program if you do have a district wide approach. So we do try and make this pretty adaptive when we can. Of course, if you have any ideas on this, we're always, once again, if you have any innovations on it or best practices on how you're collecting this, we're really happy to hear about that. But we do want to try and get a good summary of that overall reach of your program through this form. And you're going to be submitting this once again with your progress reports alongside with it. So beyond that participation summary log that you will be submitting, you're also on the mini grant side of things, which I believe most of the people in the room today are. You're going to be collecting what we call a student travel mode count. So this is trying to capture that student travel that's beginning, ideally both at the beginning and at the end of the school year. We're looking particularly for capturing of kind of these general buckets of bike, walk, roll, bus, vehicle. So that would be general vehicle, private vehicle, carpooling, or other. And so these numbers, when you do collect them, will be a component or an entry field in the closeout survey that you do. And when you are collecting these numbers, there's several methods that you can be collecting them. So you could be collecting them in our most well-known method of the travel tally form in classrooms, but you could also do it in a maybe less robust or less expansive format with dot surveys. So, handing students a little post-it note, or they have to at lunch use a marker and mark how they got to school that day, just to get a tally from that one-time picture of the student travel mode that they're using. There's also counter apps. So your coordinator, I've listed a couple here, the Counterpoint app and the Bike Walk Roll apps are online platforms where you can do counting as an observer. So you just kind of tap in each mode that you see entering. So it can be an observational poll that's collecting that data. And we do allow variations based on the size of your program, from differences from doing the whole school versus sampling. So this is dependent on the reach of your program. So if you're reaching under 75 students, we want to get as close to 100% of that reach of your program. And if you're reaching more than 75 students, you can do a sampling of at least 75 students. If it's over 500 students that your program is reaching, we want to approximately reach about 15%. So that's kind of going to impact how you do your sampling. If you have questions about the sampling method, please reach out to our offices. But once again, there's many different ways you can handle this student travel mode count collection. And we really want it to be adaptive for you and your circumstances when you're doing it. So I collect this information, and you're not gonna technically report it until the closeout survey, but we do encourage you, especially if because of grant coordinator turnover, local coordinator turnover, you might want to report it in your progress report, so that if there is a turnover, and that information is at least documented somewhere. So we might be able to help you identify and have that data for when you do the closeout survey, because we will want that information with all the other information we're collecting at the end. So you will have to collect this at some point in time during your mini grant. So with that closeout survey, it's a online format via SurveyMonkey. It should be filled out by the local grant coordinator. We want to really be looking at, and we're asking questions in terms of the fidelity of your program, the effectiveness of their program, the reach of your program. We want to be analyzing your program against other Safe Routes to School programs and components to really help identify best practices across programs and across years. If it's helpful for you and you'd like to review the closeout survey beforehand, we can provide a copy of that just so you're cognizant of what kind of questions we'd be asking. And you might, based on how robust your team is, it might be helpful to have a couple people come together to fill this out. But generally, the local coordinator will be filling it out, and they should be requesting getting the link to the survey to fill it out close to and before their final invoice. So on the other side of evaluation would be major grants. So it's required that the closeout evaluation for measures are done before that final reimbursement once again. And this is going to include doing that whole entire evaluation package you did as part of the planning process. So travel tallies, student surveys, and parent and caretaker surveys. So the first of those three tools as part of a major grant evaluation is the travel tallies. So these are administered to all classrooms K through 12. We're looking for about a 100% response rate because we're wanting that administrative buy-in, that it's going to all classrooms and getting filled out in the classroom itself. We administer the travel tallies through the National Safe Routes to School data collection system. And so generally what happens is every teacher gets this a form that looks very similar to the capture on the screen. And during roll call, they're doing a hand raise poll to see how many people walked today, raise your hand, biked, took the school bus, took your family vehicle, carpooled, transit, and other. When we set this up, we do have to have expiration dates on it. So there's a certain capture period for when you're doing it. But if you haven't hit the response rate, which is what the RR on the slide stands for, we can extend that link out if we haven't hit it in the time frame that we initially set. And so the considerations for if you do have a concurrent mini grant and our major grant is when you're trying to fulfill that travel tally for the major grant, be it as part of a planning process or as part of a major grant, you can use the travel tally to fulfill the requirement of the student travel mode count in the mini grant. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say you're in a major grant planning process and you're currently, though, this fiscal year have a mini grant. You can use coordinator time to help administer the travel tally to fulfill the mini grant's travel mode count as part of that programming time of the mini grant implementation. And then use that data both for the closeout survey for the mini grant and for the travel tally requirement as part of the major grant planning process. So that would be one comparison. So you're not having to do multiple or various collections. I will note though, in that scenario, you cannot use the mini grant coordinator time to go towards collecting those other survey tools that you might need to collect for the major grant, which I'm going to be touching on these next two slides. So for a major grant, when you're finishing your programming or during your programming, you're also going to be administering student surveys to all grades 3 through 12. We expect about a 100% response rate, but we know this is based on enrollment. You're going to have absences when you're administering these, and sometimes we have gaps in how the surveys are administered. So we aim for about an 80% response rate based on enrollment. And these surveys are administered through our SurveyMonkey, but we can also do hard copy surveys if that's going to be more effective for you and your community. Then on the parent and caretaker survey side, these are administered to all students, parents, or caregivers in grades K through 12. The goal is 50%. That's really high. Oftentimes we're just trying to come in at that bare minimum of 20%. We're also administer these through the SurveyMonkey tool or platform. And then we can do, once again, hard copy surveys. And this can be useful, particularly getting in front of parents, maybe at a parent-teacher conference or things like that. So we can then, after we do the hard copies, we do have to do that manual entry. This goes hand in hand also with the student surveys. If you have those hard copies, we will have to manage that data entry and talk about, whether we have the capacity to help you do that data entry. Generally, most communities go with the electric copy format, but we definitely can get additional versions or hard copy versions for you if that is needed. So really, that's the wrap up of what we have today on the evaluation and a little bit about programming. So hopefully this was really quick from you all. The main takeaways as we wrap up are really thinking about starting early and starting strong, both in setting up good practices for collecting that participation and tracking. So creating that system and sticking to it, or, also just learning from what is or isn't working. Really focusing on those active transportation programs, reporting everything that you do that utilizes the grant and working with the fiduciary to do that. And this can be good or bad things because that's helpful for us to learn about what isn't working, how we can support you through any difficult challenges that are coming up. We do want to see those progress reports, once again, coming in at least monthly, even if you don't submit an invoice, and make sure that invoices are submitted in time to implement the programming. So those are our key kind of summary takeaways for you. Here is all of our contact information of our team for Safe Routes to School, from our program manager at MDOT and the rest of us here at Michigan Fitness Foundation. So many of you, at least on the mini grant side, will more be touching base with us based on our functional roles versus our geographical roles. But also, if you are working on a major grant, don't hesitate to reach out to your grant coordinator too if you need assistance as well on that end. And you're obviously familiar with us from your planning processes. So with that, I just want to say thank you for your time. We hope we have addressed most of your questions about the programming as well as the evaluation. Congratulations for those of you who have joined and have received a Safe Routes to School award. We wish you the best as you implement and grow your programs, and we look forward to helping you succeed as you administer them. Thank you for attending the training. We hope to count you among hundreds of other communities in Michigan in developing strong and sustainable programs for Safe Routes to School that are a big win for local communities and for MDOT.